This is the second video of the course Sharing Lives. This video will look at the background of Islam in Europe. Islam has become part of Europe. It has become Europe's second largest religion after Christianity. The arrival of millions of Muslims in Europe has permanently changed the future of Europe and has been called the greatest religious and democratic change on the continent of Europe since the time of the Reformation. Since the 1950s, Western Europe has seen the arrival of migrant workers, mainly from North Africa and from Turkey, and also asylum seekers, many of whom come from Muslim countries. For the first 10 years, the only arrivals were men of working age, whose main aim was to earn money, to send back home, and then also to return home. This expectation never materialized, largely due to the changes of immigration laws. They decided to stay in Europe, and their families also came. This radically altered the structure of the Muslim community in Western Europe, leading to new priorities and demands on the host communities. In the eastern part of Europe, we'll see since the fall of communism a reawakening of the Muslim population that has been there for several centuries. I see several trends. First of all, the influence of Muslim majority nations. The countries of origin of Muslim immigrants such as Morocco and Turkey and also Pakistan seek to maintain connections with their nationals. Also other Islamic countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran seek to influence the Muslim communities in Europe. Such interstate cooperation and even competition on matters concerning Islam and Muslims affects the development of Islam in Europe and impacts the Islamic authority making in Europe. Secondly, the influence of transnational movements and networks. Besides the influence of Islamic countries and the development of Muslims in Europe, we also see the influence of transnational movements and networks, such as Salafism, Wahhabism, the Gulen movement, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Sufi orders. Third trend, the proliferation of religious authority. Due to changes in the structure of Islam in Europe and the influence of modern mass media, we see changes taking place in the role and authority of religious leaders. More and more people have access to religious authoritative texts. Also, the mass media created a tremendous increase in the number of authority voices in the public sphere. We see a fragmentation and a pluralization of religious authority among Muslims in Europe. Cyber imams compete with mosque imams. Self-made teachers compete with established authority figures, like the sheikhs of Al-Azhar of Medina. New people, not all religiously trained, claim the right to speak on behalf of Islam in authoritative ways. Through their YouTube channels, to their blogs, such people can become enormously influential. In order to get some grip on several European countries have started or are in the process of starting their own imam training programs. Fourthly, a new hermeneutics of interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah. As a consequence of what I just said, we see a growing diversification in interpreting the Quran. This new hermeneutics of interpretation of the Quran and the Sunnah can particularly be seen in the writings of four renowned Muslim reformers that are based in Europe: Bassam Tibi, Tariq Ramadan, Tarek Obru, and Abdennour Bidar. These four are all contributing to the idea of a European Islam. Tibi refers to Islam as a cultural system. Tariq Ramadan writes about transformation as a reform. Tarek Obru emphasizes the secularization of European Islamic theology, and Abdennour Bidar promotes a movement from self-Islam to overcoming religion. The fifth trend I'll see is the individualization of Islamic thinking and practices. Ordinary Muslims now have multiple and often conflicting sets of interpretations and norms and therefore they have to choose the religious path they want to follow. Individualization of religious beliefs is a major development in Europe's Muslim communities. It's in Islam where the believer decides autonomously which elements of Islam he or she considers to be binding or not. Among Muslims in Europe, we see a growing liberation from the Islamic traditional thinking and practices. We see a gradual disappearance of several Islamic law schools that is so common in traditional Islam. Also, we see a growing emphasis on individual choice in religious practices. For a growing number of Muslims, religion becomes a private concern, having to do with their own spiritual question. The outcome of this individualization of Islamic faith and practices does not automatically mean a decline in religious practice, nor a liberalization of Islam, nor a complete loss of religious conviction. It sometimes leads to a critical attitude among the second-generation Muslims towards the Islam of their parents and also towards religious authority. Some break away from Islamic culture of their parents in search of what they call pure Islam. The sixth trend that I see is a growing plurality and diversity closely related to the individualization of religious practices and beliefs is this growing plurality and diversity of Muslims in Europe. I don't think we can even speak of Islam in Europe, but should refer to Islams, plural. We can identify several ways of being Muslims in Europe, and I've listed some of them here. Cool Muslims, converted Muslims, critical Muslims, cultural Muslims, these are secular Muslims, nominal Muslims, Orthodox Muslims or Neo-Orthodox Muslims, which are traditional Muslims, progressive Muslims, ex-Muslims, angry Muslims, reformist Muslims, liberal Muslims, mystical Muslims, etc. Seventh trend is a continued struggle to belong in an environment of Islamophobia. Islam has become part of Europe's society. Most Muslims that came as guest workers and refugees are here to stay. Their children and grandchildren are European citizens who grew up here and who study here, who make a living here and consider themselves Europeans. Nevertheless, the society around them, who invited them to come in the 1960s to help rebuild our societies and to regain our welfare, is becoming more and more intolerant towards them. Across Europe, we see expressions of anti-Muslim racism and Islamophobia. Political parties thriving on populism consider Islam problematic for Europe. Muslims in Europe are often the object of racialization, and Muslim migrants are believed to pose a danger to the European values and norms, and Islam is considered to not be compatible with a democracy and European secular identity. The presence of Muslims is considered a threat to the social cohesion. Their culture is essentialized. Muslims are being labeled as unacceptable others. While Muslims are trying to link their Islamic faith with being European, the society they want to be part of rejects them for not fitting in. I observe a growth of expression of Islam that becomes more and more European. It's a deculturalized and a recontextualized Islam, an Islam that is compatible with European modernity. At the same time, I'm concerned that a lack of strong Islamic institutions of education in Europe allows outside forces such as Salafism to influence European Muslims. This could be a basis for future conflict and turmoil. When we look at statistics, the number of Muslims in Europe that has grown from just over 26 million in 2010 to about 34 million at the moment. This is about 5 or 6% of Europeans' population. Depending on whether the migration from Islamic countries continues, and if so, in what way, this number could grow to 60 or even 75 million, which is 7.4% or 14% in 2050. But we have to understand that an exact count of Muslims is impossible. It's not a simple task. While Muslims' identity often is measured directly In some cases, it must be estimated based on the national origins of the migrants. Also, it's important to keep in mind that statistics do not give any indication of the religious commitment, beliefs and practices of a person. Some believe that only 1/3 of all Muslims in Europe actively practice their Islamic faith. Also, we must realize that we should not Islamize social economic problems. For example, when we speak of North African Muslims in Paris, for instance, causing a riot, we need to realize that this might have more to do with socio-economic problems than with their religion. Generally, we can identify the following key characteristics of Muslims in Europe. Urban. Geographically speaking, most Muslims are in low-rent housing in the suburbs of the peripheries of major urban centers across Europe. For instance, 1/3 of all Muslims in France live in or around Paris. 40% of all Muslims in the United Kingdom live in the London area. Secondly, many Muslims are young, a lot younger, and Muslims have a higher growth rates than average Europeans. 30% of Muslims in Germany and France is younger than 18 years. 30% of Muslims in the UK and Belgium, for instance, is younger than 15. 20% of the Brussels below 25 is Muslim. And in some sections of Amsterdam, the most popular boy's name is Mohammed. Thirdly, poor. Economically speaking, Muslims face considerable worse economic circumstances than many others living in Europe. It has to do with sometimes unemployment or struggle to survive, to make ends meet, or housing problems. Having said this, we should not lose sight of the fact that there is a growing number of middle-class Muslims across Europe as well. Muslims are religious. Not every Muslim is a practicing Muslim, but on average, Muslims in Europe are more religious than other faith communities and maintain closer ties to their countries of origin. Religion is still important in the daily lives of European Muslims. Successful integration need not entail detachment from Islam or immigrants' culture of origin. Overall, Muslims are immigrants that maintain a strong religious commitment. Socially, they are diverse. The Muslim community in Europe is quite diverse when we look at their cultural background, their ethnic background, and also their religious commitment and denominations and practices. Europe's Muslims population encompasses Muslims born in Europe and in a wide variety of non-European countries. It includes Sunnis and Shiites and Sufis, and it includes different levels of religious commitments and beliefs among Muslims. While for some their Muslim identity is not important, for others their Muslim identity is profoundly shapes their daily lives. We'll see in the next video that because of the Islamic presence in Europe, the European societies have become very fearful.